One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
And we're live on match day as Doug reaches for a buffalo wing. He's got it! Oh, and he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! What a finish! There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It looked like an airliner from a third world country that was trying too hard. I mean, I'm being a little bit harsh. It's a beautiful plane. I'm a little bit surprised how, if you're in the White House press corps, the first thing you do is take 1 million pictures of yourself in front of that plane. Because, hey, here I am, Air Force One. But it's just a plane with a beautiful paint job. Inside, it's really not all that. And, I don't know. When's the last time you got excited about flying on JetBlue? JetBlue is a newer plane and a safer plane than the Air Force One that's been flying since 1989, actually. He's on this thing for the first time ever in flight, and I haven't heard anything about the plane having a mishap or anything, so it's got that paint job, and it's big, and it's when I see the old 747 as well, I see an old-timey plane. You got to be a pilot, or you got to be really into planes to notice it, but the hump on the 747 that he's been flying for most of his presidency, all of his presidencies, is a fairly small hump. There are only a handful of planes that are that old in the entire world. Only a handful of 747s that are that old. Kalitta Airlines has one. Have you ever been on Kalitta Airlines? Of course you haven't. It's a cargo airline. They have planes that old. Any plane in the country, any random plane in the country that's an airliner, that's a commercial airliner, I can almost guarantee is newer than the Air Force One that we're about to trade in and upgrade. So it's a great move getting this thing from Qatar. People say, well, how could we do it from Qatar? How could we take a freebie from Qatar? After all, it's a Muslim country, right? Kinda. And it's in the Persian Gulf. Well, we're really good friends with Qatar, and we have been for a very long time. When I was in the military in the late 90s, I remember doing joint operations with the Qatari military. We did joint operations with the Saudi military. I mean, we loved it when we did stuff with the Israeli military, but, we have friends, we have other friends. Ronald Reagan famously sold the AWACS jet to Saudi Arabia. It was like his first big legislative test. I don't know why that was such a big deal. But there was opposition to giving it to Saudi Arabia. We sold it to Saudi Arabia. They're still our friend. We still have bases over there. We could not be prosecuting the war against Iran, or we couldn't have, without the support of these Middle East countries, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. And it's different when it comes to airplanes. I got these pictures. I've made videos about this. President Trump has been getting on and off of airplanes. That he bought or sold since he was 30 years old. He just looks at it differently from the rest of us. I will not fly a plane that's even been to Qatar. Now, hold on a second. That 747 was made in Seattle, Washington, Everett, Washington, right? It's still an American plane. It's not like he's flying an Airbus, which is made in Marseille, France. Marseille, something like that. Some of them are made also in Alabama, I should point out. But most of the components are from overseas. All right. So we have another. This is real. This is outside of New York. This is happening. The socialist takeover of the Democrat Party. Now, it doesn't have to be this way. Yes, they're winning primaries all over the place. This latest crazy lady, 29-year-old. I think she was born in Ethiopia. I'm not 100% sure about that. She seems to hate America. She seems to understand the point of view of the terrorists, why we were hit on 9/11. Was she alive on 9/11? I guess she was. But that somehow America deserved it. We deserved because of our foreign policy and what we were doing, and we were too provocative. And so she is now poised to become a congressperson. And you know what we should have are courageous Democrats standing up and saying, we have no room for this in our party. But they're afraid. These people are young. They're not afraid to say stuff. They will come out very open about their hate. I think there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party, but they were basically kind of hush-hush about it. They can't. They don't have the backbone to stand up to this. They're just trying to triangulate. How do we harness their power? Or how do we get them to leave us alone? Or how do we join them? You know what this means more than anything right now for this moment? And I'm sad to say this, actually. Not that I particularly care who the Democrats nominate. There will not be a Jewish president in 2028. A lot of people, and look, Josh Shapiro is the guy I'm talking about, and Rahm Emanuel. They're two Jews, and they have a lot of appeal in the old Democrat Party. I don't like them. I don't like either one of them, especially that Josh Shapiro. He's a Barack Obama imitator, which is really, it's bizarre to watch him speak. But he won't be nominated, and he knows that now. It's becoming, with what happened last night, and they're still absorbing this. But the Democrat Socialists of America, I'm coming up with a new one for the rest of the Democrat Party, who's there now. They're not moderate anymore because they went bananas with everything anti-Trump. But this is kind of like sealing the deal. Now you guys really are off the reservation. I mean, you are anti-American. You already were blowing up the border and allowing children to be sexualized. But now you're going with DSA. You are now, I call you desperate, scared, but still ambitious. That's the DSA. That's the Nancy Pelosi, the Chuck Schumer, the rank and file Democrats, rank and file. And even to a little degree, believe it or not, AOC. AOC is, they view her with a little bit of suspicion. Hakeem Jeffries, who's every bit as radical as these people, but he's been able to keep it under wraps. He had to keep it under wraps. He had to distance himself from that nutjob uncle at Binghamton University and the communist and a lot of other weird things. That guy is ideologically where he's been. He had to distance himself if he wanted to be elected, by the establishment, if he wanted to be accepted by the establishment. And now the establishment is going crazy communist, and he doesn't know what the hell to do. Hey, the other thing I want to do here, Nina Totenberg, it's not a big deal, but I've never liked this reporter, Nina Totenberg. I noticed her on the radio back in the 90s, and I said, who is this arrogant woman? You might be thinking the same thing about me. I don't know. But here she is. She made a big bonehead mistake. Her biggest mistake was being arrogant and a bit of a know-it-all and so smug over the years. And also one of these people who was continually popping up on those Sunday talk shows, even Fox News. So she falsely reported that Samuel Alito was retiring. All right, that's not the case. He's very much on the court. And if he does retire, well, he's not retiring now. She was wrong. All right, where do we have? You got that Nina Totenberg. Once we're done with this, we'll never talk about her again because I think she's about to be fired. Carlos, where's my Nina Totenberg? The last time I'll ever say that. You got it handy? Hit it, please. Oh, damn it, we don't have it. Well, anyway, she's groveling on Fox News that I'm sorry, this is the biggest mistake I ever made in my life. I'm not going to do it again. There you go. Just here we go. Here
There's some people that are not in the news business, not in journalism. They may not know that some of these stories are pre-written just in the eventuality that some of these retirements, obituaries happen. What exactly led to this today? What happened?
This is my fault and only my fault. It's not NPR's fault. It's we do pre-write stories about people for when they retire, when they die, whatever, so we can quickly, and they take a lot of time to prepare. In this case, this was just my fault. I left the courtroom a little early before they were finished, but after they finished announcing opinions. And when I realized that nobody was following me, I said to somebody, "What's going on in there?" And I misunderstood the answer and thought that somebody had suggested that Justice Alito was retiring. I was completely wrong. I wasn't in the courtroom. This is all on me. This is not on the network. And I regret. It's the worst mistake I've ever made in my more than 50 years as a journalist. I deeply regret it, and I've written an apology to Justice Alito.
I appreciate you coming out, and I think people appreciate the transparency of all of that and an unfortunate mistake that came about. Is there any indicators that anyone, Alito or others, might be stepping down because we know the midterms were coming up? Did the timing have to do with it at all?
No, but we're used to justices retiring on the last day of the term or the day after, and I'm pretty sure now that nobody's retiring, least of all Justice Alito.
Stop. Yeah. So, you notice that this is nobody's fault but mine. This is nobody's fault. This is not NPR's fault. I never really suspected anybody but you, Nina. It's kind of a clever defense, actually, as if we were thinking that. I want to take all the heat that's on NPR. All right. They shouldn't be subjected to any criticism because this is all my fault. Okay. That number one, it's a trick. She looks gracious. She looks like, oh, yes, look at that. She's taking responsibility. I was about to blame her network. See? And the other thing she gets to toot or tout, and nobody can check this. How the hell do you check this? This is the biggest mistake I've made in my 50-year career. I remember in the 1990s listening to this crazy lady and really coming up with a visceral distaste for her, in part because, well, she's on the radio. She never uses clips. She never uses sound bites. I use them all the time. And granted, for a while there, she was in front of the Supreme Court, and audio recordings weren't always a thing there. But she never added any color. She would just sit there and read something that she wrote, and it would take her 5 minutes, and I was fascinated by it, actually. NPR, for all the hype about NPR, for all the hype about BBC, for that matter, they're really not that hot. What she needs to do every now and then is stop and play a clip like I do, like the Honeymooners, which I played in the last hour. Actually, here's a good clip. Can you figure out what the Supreme Court is talking about? If you go, and this is a little trickery that lawyers in general do, they talk in a way that confuses rather than illuminates. And it becomes a habit, and then it just is the accepted language. Now, this is a case I was interested in. It was about carrying firearms in Washington, D.C., Heller versus the District of Columbia. And I can, but I follow it, then I lose it. I follow it, then I lose it. I follow it, then I lose it. Maybe you can follow it, but I'm sure you're going to lose it too. Cut 2, please. Cut 2. Oral arguments.
Important regulatory interest of these particularly dangerous weapons is clearly a significant regulatory and important regulatory interest. In two respects, this is removed from the core of the amendment. Even if it is not limited to militia service, even the court below, no one doubts that was, as the court below said, the most salient objective. So this is in the penumbra or the periphery, not the core. It was undoubtedly aimed principally, if not exclusively, at national legislation which displaced the laws in all of the states, rural as well as urban. Here you've got local legislation responsive to local needs, and this is local legislation in the seat of the government, where Congress, which was created in order to protect the security of the national government, and where it would be extraordinary to assume that this is the one place, if you're not going to incorporate it, the one area in the United States where no government, free of the strictures of the Second Amendment, could control dangerous weapons.
All right, I got about 30% of that. Tops. And that's something I know, Second Amendment and guns. When they start talking about fisheries and stocks, it gets, nobody can understand. And it shouldn't be that way. The Constitution was written by farmers for farmers. Thank you very much, Alan Dershowitz, for that little tidbit. We'll be right back.
In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Yep, just like I thought, the way the news works, he's having a great deal of success. The midterms are fast approaching, so there's this momentum gathering among the fake news, to turn President Trump's financial success, personal financial success, turn that into a weapon against him. Say that the family is unfairly or unlawfully profiting from the presidency. This is not true, actually. Now, our founding fathers basically had no problem with presidents having an outside income. The emoluments clause is something entirely different. It has nothing to do with, like, if you have a private business, that business can continue to make money and continue to pay you. It's emoluments from governments, right? Other governments cannot pay a president directly, that kind of thing. What else? And Eric and Don Jr. and Ivanka, I remember interviewing them in 2000. When did I first meet Eric Trump? I think it was in 2008. And I remember and he was already wildly successful. And, okay, family business. You know how many people squander family fortunes? It's like it's a trend. People inherit and then they squander. President Trump did a fantastic job with these kids. And they've been flying all over the world for decades. Are they still doing that? More power to them. They have skill. They're providing a service. There's actually something they know how to do. What did Hunter Biden know how to do? Paint? No, he knew how to freebase drugs. He knew how to score crack cocaine. He knew how to handle a gun. Actually, he didn't know how to do that very well. He got it illegally and was reckless with it. So reckless, in fact, that his sister-in-law, what should have been his sister-in-law, he was fooling around with his sister-in-law. What a depraved family. And then Joe Biden said, "Oh, I'm so proud that they found each other." Found each other? They were right across from each other at Thanksgiving, playing footsie under the table probably. I want to know if they were fooling around before Beau died. That's a real possibility, too. Nobody ever talks about that. Well, I guess it's old news. No, it's not. We need accountability. Joe Biden, for his entire career, profited off of that spot. And he did it in a dark, illegal way. 10% for the big guy. Brothers, his son, running all over the world, shaking people down so they could get access to the big guy. That's crummy stuff. We never got to the bottom of it. Oh, my gosh. President Trump is already worth many, many billions. He could just sit there and money would accumulate when you got billions in the bank. Anyway, fake news. Don't worry about it. Be right back. 800-848-9222.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, we're back, and I haven't heard Iran mentioned by pretty much anybody in a while, but it's still an outstanding issue. There's an indication that negotiations seems to be up and down. I would like this war to be over. I know some other friends, good friends actually, who think we have to finish the job and that we haven't finished it yet. I'd like to bring in once again our favorite, General Blaine Holt, U.S. Air Force retired, master strategist and tactician. And nobody knows this war and international affairs like he does. General, welcome back. How are you, sir? And where the hell are we?
Yeah, happy 250th. We're in great shape. And I'm watching so many naysayers just saying, well, the administration doesn't know what it's doing. Talks are on again, off again. What makes everybody think that President Trump is not using Iran's strategy of of delaying and kicking the can down the road against them. I mean, everything is working on our side. So we did an MOU. We got the Straits open. We got over 100 million barrels through the Straits. That alleviated some oil concerns in the global economy. Meanwhile, you've got a building resistance that's about to turn into a revolution. The Kurds on the Iraqi border bearing down on Iran, getting ready for action. Iraq itself arresting sympathizers that are politicians for Iran who were laundering money. They recovered billions of dollars in cash that was meant to go to Hezbollah. And so who's got time on their side? I would say it's the United States and President Trump. And what you're going to find amongst the competing regimes in Iran now in IRGC that's got weapons, they're sunsetting. Yes, they still are dangerous. They still have punch. But we're taking this war to a very good place. And you can look at the oil futures. That'll tell you where the smart money is feeling on this thing, hovering between 70 and $75 a barrel.
All right, but what about that Strait of Hormuz thing? Because, they can apparently, it seems, when they want, at least this is how it's portrayed, close it down whenever they want. And, yes, we got some oil through, but, it seems to be up to them a little bit. And is that true? And how devastating is that when that happens? And how do we stop that from happening if it's happening?
So you have the hidden adversary that's also playing a role in this, and that adversary comes from the financialists at the City of London, 1 mile squared banking district that is attached to that other thing called Lloyd's of London. If Lloyd's sees that the IRGC can successfully get even a $300 drone to damage a Singaporean tanker, they're going to shut everything down financially and tell everybody, you better not play ball with Trump. Nobody moves through the straits or we won't insure you. And so what you're seeing, though, is the IRGC has more and more limited combat options. Do they still have options? Yes, they do. But can they shut down the entire strait? No, they absolutely cannot. And then this hidden adversary, they tried since President Trump and Scott Bessent called them out, they tried to do the exact same thing, but not through Lloyd's, but through Oman and Iran to make statements saying, oh, we're the two countries that'll control the straits. President Trump just said, no, you won't. It's freedom of navigation. Oman and Iran will not do that. Then Iran got upset with Oman for not showing solidarity, so they threw the drone at that one tanker. But this is the sputtering of the ninth inning. This is not. Should we be concerned that Iran can willfully close the straits?
All right. So General Kellogg, Keith Kellogg, who's had senior roles in the Trump administration, first and second. He's now at America First. This got my attention. He came forward actually on my show and here and said, we have to finish the job. And I'm like, well, wait a second. I thought we did that already. And he felt that we hadn't, and that the nuclear, still got legs. And, I was surprised. What does he mean when he says we got to finish the job? And is he wrong? Have we already finished the job militarily?
No, we have not finished the job militarily, but I'm not guessing either that the general and I are in complete alignment with how we see things. I don't think that there's some sort of pause in our operations. I think there's many things going on. In fact, I know there's many things going on that the public cannot see, that the public would be very, very happy if they knew they were happening. We are finishing the job. We are going to that place. So the only correction that I would make to the general is there's no hand-wringing saying, no, we did all the military stuff. There is a United States military that's retailoring its forces. Some forces are coming home now, some bombers, some other things. But we're getting ready for the final act. The final act is aiding and abetting a revolution so that the Iranians can take back their country. And heck, they'll open the door and say, hey, the uranium's over there, go get it. But what we don't need, and I would argue this with any Army flag officer, is a repeat of Iraq or Afghanistan for 130,000 invasion force, and then we own it for life and nobody knows why we're there in the first place. That's what we don't need.
Understood. All right, here's President Trump. Carlos, let me know if we got him. He was on his way to North Dakota. He's there right now, actually, and he's going back on Friday. North Dakota Wednesday, South Dakota on Friday, and he's coming back, to get into those places. Oh, that's the beauty of Air Force One. Here he is just before getting on the big, brand new plane, by the way. Hit it if you would, Carlos.
As far as things are going, the denuclearization of Iran is moving along well. They've had very good meetings, and we'll see. We hit them very hard for 3 nights, as you know, but we're getting along very well. So I call it the denuclearization, and it's all taking place. It's all going well. The stock market is setting records virtually every day. The oil price is way down. We're down at 68. I see it hit 68 today. That's lower than when I started the, I guess you could call it an attack on Iran so that they never have a nuclear weapon. So the oil price is now lower. The retail prices, the gasoline is coming down rapidly. As far as things are going,
all right. It sounds a lot like General Holt, actually, in many ways. But he didn't say that we're still carrying out military stuff. And I understand he can't. And I really like that you said that and that that's happening. And I'm totally cool with that. We may not be able to see it. Our side isn't talking about it. But it's actually still happening. And that's great. Hey, one other thing. A nuclear centrifuge that can enrich uranium. Vice President Vance said the other day that we got rid of all of them. Now, I was really happy with that because my understanding was a centrifuge was huge, like a big ring under the earth, and it's huge, and everybody knows where it is. Apparently, these things are very small, like the size of a flat screen TV, and that makes me a little bit less confident. How big are these things, and how do we know if we got them all?
Yep. So we have intelligence, and I can't get into the methodologies about how they go ahead and gauge whether they have an active centrifuge threat or not. But what I can say is there's always going to be a threat as long as there's rail lines that go into that country from China and other places, Turkmenistan. And so what I would say is it's a threat we have to monitor. Do we have intelligence that can get at that to see if they're starting a rebuild? There are so many indicators and warnings that they're starting a rebuild. It doesn't have to come down to, can I find the centrifuge? I can see by a variety of actions that you're going back after this capability, and then we're going to hammer you for it.
Okay. And in the meantime, I don't sense that the American people are particularly stressed about this. The polls indicate that it's not popular, but those are the polls. I mean, everything President Trump touches, according to the polls, are almost never popular. But what do you think of the public's role in all of this, and where is the public on this?
I think the public is war weary on a whole variety of things. I don't think that they consume or do a lot of self-research to consume probably the right sight picture. But here's where I think it all ends happily ever after. We are on the right track with the Middle East. We are on the right track with Iran. And very soon, I think, in a couple of weeks, I think the president will be able to tout that this thing has wrapped up, that there is a new friendly government like the Venezuela model to the United States. And I do think that Americans will understand their security is improved. Their grandkids will never be under the threat of Armageddon-minded psychopaths, and that it's a new day. And when Americans feel secure and then the economy comes around and they see that dollar dropping at the gas pump, Americans can blow in the wind quickly on those polls and go, oh, no, I did vote for this. This is great. Now I understand it. But as you and I have talked about greatly, there are so many layers of complexity to this whole thing and different actors in this. I don't begrudge any American who can't just take a look at this and understand how complicated this Rubik's Cube is. I just know they'll understand when it looks a lot better.
I understand. I understand that. I understand. I will understand when it looks better. Cool. I'm looking at North Dakota right now. Who knew there was a Teddy Roosevelt library up there? I knew there was one on Long Island. Yeah, the horses are escorting the way. The Rough Riders, I guess, they're reenacting the Rough Riders. Do me a favor. I'd like to get you on some politics. This is Mamdani, the man of the moment, the socialist mayor of New York City with that big goofy smile. Cut 13.
I've been reminded of the words of the Austrian economist Friedrich Hayek. If socialists understood economics, they wouldn't be socialists. If these past months have shown us anything, it is that socialists not only understand economics just as well as the capitalists who came before.
So he's actually lying and saying that voters like socialism. I mean, and that's why they're winning. First of all, very few people are voting. And secondly, what I believe is fueling the rise of the so-called socialists, the DSA, isn't really the socialism. It's the Jew hatred. It's the Jew hatred and the prejudice. That's, I think, their driving, guiding force. Fair enough or no?
I think it's fair, and I think, you raise a great point because there's echoes in history that match right up with this. You need to go to the Russian Revolution. You need to look at the start of what happened in 1939 when Hitler persecuted the Jews. You need to look at where Marxism actually comes from. It doesn't come from Russia. It comes from England. It comes from the city of London. There is a proper way to study this. Here's the problem and why that Mamdani is being successful with his communism so far. And that is that Alinsky's Rules for Radicals out of the 60s, they have spent decades, Greg, co-opting our kids' education and the education system with indoctrination. And it got very aggressive over the last 20 years. We started to pick up on it in COVID when we saw what they were teaching our kids. But Mamdani is just a product of that. And he's never studied Hayek any more than he knows who Milton Friedman or even Lord Keynes is. He doesn't know any of that stuff. What he is a talking head and a manufactured product. And I don't like the term DSA. I would much rather we just call things what they are. He's a communist, and communism, and if we want to parse that, we could go back to the Antifa BLM burning down of our cities and everybody looking the other way and saying that's okay. That's called communism. I want totalitarian rules, and if you don't like them, I'm going to get them anyway. And we would be right to now follow President Trump's leadership, which he is now guiding and using that word, that is America's internal domestic fight, and we must fight it.
Fascinating. All right, the communists. And one more thing on the communist thing. When people like Mamdani take the oath of office and they put their hand on the Quran or whatever it is, and they say, they swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. There is a problem. There's a problem there because communism is antithetical to the Constitution. So, I'm kind of getting to a place where this should. I'm just thinking out loud here. Almost, you can't do it, but I'm wondering if we are justified to think about these people should be barred. We can't do it. We got to defeat them because their ideas stink. We got to defeat them with better ideas. But a guy used to call me from Indiana saying these people shouldn't even be allowed in office if they feel this way.
He's right. He's right. But then let's look at the actions. Mamdani swore an oath to the Constitution. He's already violated that oath, and it's impeachable. What did he violate? Well, he's already violated private property rights. He doesn't respect them. He will take over your building if he can. He has publicly espoused that. He will go ahead and compete with his own grocery stores against private business. So he's already violated that oath to the Constitution. New Yorkers will have to decide for themselves whether they want to extirpate themselves from communism or not. I love New York, its spirit, and there's no more American city than New York. So I believe America's city will wake up and say this must stop now. Because if New York doesn't do it here, the communists won't stop. They'll just turn up the heat. And he's not the only one. He's got a whole crew.
Yeah, and all over the country now, it turns out, all over the country. Well, right. Blaine Holt, we're grateful. General Blaine Holt, U.S. Air Force, retired. And how do you, real quick, what do you make of that brand new Air Force One? I think President Trump rode it as president for the first time today, that beautiful 747. How is it different from the old 747?
Oh, it's longer. The upstairs is much bigger. It's got all kinds of bells and whistles that they have jammed into it since we received that airplane. It is gorgeous. Every American should take pride when they see that jet flying as a symbol, emblematic of America, and an American-made airplane back in our hands. Thank you, Qatar. And yes, we have our own procurement problems, but we should all just put a big smile on our face that our commander-in-chief is flying around in the best.
Yeah, and it's a new plane, relatively new plane, like 4 years old.
Relatively new, yep.
The regular plane that he was flying in was 37 years old, and the plane that we fly, JetBlue, is about 7, 8, 12 years old, tops.
Right.
So it's amazing. General Holt, we thank you.
Can't thank you enough. Happy 250.
You bet. Happy 250. And follow him on X at @the_irascible. At @the_irascible. Next time, we'll ask him about his business, which is very, very interesting. Xuriant. They're doing all kinds of wild things. All right. We will be right back. Did I mention the number? 800-848 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. July 1st, 6 months left in this glorious year. Be right back.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ooh, Pete Buttigieg got swatted. Somebody, it's like a false alarm. You remember in school, like the juvenile delinquent would pull the fire alarm. Well, now the thing is to call the cops and say, there's a hostage situation or something. It's a very bad thing to do, and I'm sorry it happened to him. But, of course, he's trying to milk it like crazy. He is a top-tier candidate for president of the United States on the Democrat side. Personally, myself, I find it a little bit reprehensible because so much of his life has been because of his sexuality. And when I say so much of his life, so much of his success, becoming transportation secretary after a fairly successful, even though he lost, presidential campaign. A guy was, it's unbelievable. And because reporters were just fascinated by his gayness. They're not fascinated by my straightness. Why would they be fascinated by his gayness? Very strange. Gayness. Yes, Mike, in Parsippany.
Say,
is he there?
You mentioned, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, did I lose you?
No, I hear you.
Can you hear me now? Oh, great. Last week you mentioned how we got a crazy name for this 250th. And I always thought it should be called the Quarter Millennial. It makes a lot more sense. People pick up on it right away. They don't have to.
I know, but it's too late for that. Let's face it.
No, it's not the 4th of July yet. Quarter Millennial.
No, it's too late for that. No, we aren't going to run around calling it the Quarter Millennial. It's America 250.
You said it once.
Say it. America 250. Say it.
America 250, the Quarter Millennial.
Thank you. It's not going to be Quarter Millennial. It's not a bad idea, but it's just too late. And I thank you very much, Mike. Let's see here. Steve, what do you want?
Hey, Greg. Greg, I have a short-term solution on how we can defeat these DSA types in the elections. I think you pointed this out, but I agree. They're essentially running in deep blue areas, low voter turnout, where whoever wins the Democratic primary is going to win the general because the Republicans are basically thrown in the towel. So I would say to people in these upcoming elections where DSA candidates are running, Republicans and independents, register as Democrats, vote against them. We got to stop these people now because that's how they're winning, Greg. Right? So let's get on board.
Well, you say vote against them this November?
No.
Yeah, primaries, because anybody can vote in the general. All right. Yeah, I know. You know what? It's going to take more than a concert. That's an interesting idea. Very interesting idea. And keep them out of the primaries, but infiltrate the Democrat Party. The Republican Party has got to get organized. There are just too many places we're giving it up. But you're right about the deep blue and the low turnout, and it's important to put that in perspective, but they still freaked out the entire Democrat Party. So it goes beyond deep blue. Don't you think? This is it. This is the way. This is the way it's going.
Yeah, well, this is the way it's going if we don't stop it. This is a short.
We can't redirect that party. As interesting and as your idea is, and it's been tried before, I'm not going to become a Democrat and redirect the Democrat Party. And I don't think they're strong enough. I think we have to just save MAGA-ism. Is that the music? I want to get Gail real quick. Gail, hello.
Hi, Greg. I really appreciate your telling people how President Trump did enter office as a billionaire. Yet we don't hear the New York Times talking about
the Clintons. Gail, stay with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here? Almonte's Key Food, proudly serving communities throughout Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island for over 30 years. When you shop Key Food, you'll always find fresh products, great weekly specials, and exceptional personalized service. Visit at any of their Key Food stores at 8235 153rd Avenue, Lindenwood, New York, 935 Rosedale Road, Valley Stream, New York, and 6620 Avenue U, Brooklyn, New York.